In the latest, Russia warns that conflict between Russia and the US-led NATO military alliance would become inevitable if European members of NATO troops fight in Ukraine. Kremlin spokesperson has warned that, and it comes amid statements made by French President Emmanuel Macron in Paris, where European leaders discussed ways to bolster Western support for Ukraine. The French president said that the prospect of sending NATO troops to Ukraine should not be ruled out, despite the NATO chief saying the alliance has no such plans.
Вот так и оцениваем. И также должны оценивать эти страны, отдавать себе в этом отчет. И задаваться вопросом, соответствует ли это их интересам, а главное интересам граждан их стран.
Macron's comments quickly triggered a backlash. Western allies immediately denounced the remarks on putting soldiers in Ukraine. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz said that leaders in Paris said that everyone must do more for Ukraine, but no by deploying NATO forces.
We obviously discuss ways how to arrange for the support, and here, once again, in a very good debate, it was discussed that what was agreed from the outset among ourselves and with each other also applies to the future, namely that there will be no ground troops, no soldiers on Ukrainian soil will be sent there by European countries or by NATO states.
The spokesperson for British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak also said that the UK had no plans for a large-scale deployment in Ukraine, and a Spanish government spokesperson also disagreed on deploying European troops. On the other hand, even talks of a confrontation between Russia and NATO indicates the dangers of escalation. Russia and the United States, who are the biggest powers behind NATO, have the world's largest nuclear arsenal. It has made President Joe Biden repeatedly cautious that a conflict between Russia and NATO could trigger World War III. Meanwhile, as the war escalates, Ukrainian forces on Tuesday said that quote-unquote fierce battles were underway near the key towns of Chasiv Yar in eastern Ukraine, where Russia is actively trying to advance. Now, Chasiv Yar is located near Bakhmut, which fell to Russian forces in May last year. A Russian advance in that area would ramp up the pressure on Kramatorsk, which is the last major city in the Donbas region and still controlled by Ukraine, which is coming under increasing frequent bombardment. To discuss this further, we are being joined by Dr. Gilbert Dr. Rao. He is an international affairs analyst, author and historian. He's joining us live from Brussels. Sir, thank you so much for joining us here on WION. I want to ask you a question. The straight question is that how probable do you think it is for the West to send troops to Ukraine?
I think that Mr. Macron was trying to draw attention to himself. This he's been doing for the whole time of his presidency. He finds it necessary to remind the world that France is an important country and that he is an important leader. But unfortunately, the man is extremely shallow, and the positions that he has taken, the flip-flops he's taken, from extending an olive branch to Russia when everyone else was against it, to now trying to instigate the sending of troops officially to engage in the war against Russia. These are shallow and badly thought out statements only for the sake of his own vanity. The idea of sending troops to the war is, of course, denounced by all the other European leaders who took part in this meeting, and for good reason, because they know that the Russians' statement of their intentions to respond with military force to any NATO country that attacks them or that facilitates the dispatch of F-16s or long-range missiles to Ukraine or under the name of Ukraine to be used against Russia is risking a direct hit by Russian missiles.
Absolutely.
which have been withheld.
Dr. Gilbert, that's exactly what I was going to speak about. But you see, you're calling Emmanuel Macron shallow, but when Emmanuel Macron goes on the global stage, makes a statement like that, it's not just that he's only representing France, is he? He's representing the entirety of NATO. And after that, we see Germany, Britain and Spain say that they have no plans to send ground troops. I want to ask you, how does that make NATO look in the eyes of the entire world as well as in front of Russia?
It makes NATO look reasonably afraid of Russia, which it should be, because in terms of military might, NATO is, even with American participation, inferior in force in conventional weapons to what the Russians have. And they understand that, finally, in the West. Of course, there's a disparity. It's most amazing that Poland was among those countries that stated at the very beginning of Mr. Macron's time on the stage that they will not participate, because Poland has been among the most aggressive in opposing Russian policy generally and Russian policy in Ukraine in particular. Britain also is an outstanding case. The Brits have been the attack dog for the United States in the whole Ukrainian saga, and the Prime Minister's spokesman said at once that they will not send ground troops.
Dr. Gilbert, I want to take your quick reaction on something that we are just getting. US President Joe Biden has warned the Congress leaders of quote-unquote dire cost in case they fail to cause the Ukraine failure, and what we have been hearing in the Congress, failure in the aid that Ukraine is expecting but has still not gotten the pass. I want to ask you, what could we see the repercussions of it on the ground?
None. This is completely empty rhetoric by Mr. Biden. He's reading lines that have been fed to him by people like Victoria Nuland and other hawks. The reality is that it's too late to save Ukraine. And even if they were to vote tomorrow to put in the $60 billion, it will be only to provide additional funds to the American defense industry, not to send one useful piece of war material to Ukraine. The game is up. And most congressmen, or many congressmen, appreciate that fact and are not playing along. So the Ukrainian situation is ripe for resolution.
Dr. Gilbert, thank you so much for getting us all those insights and very interesting points there. Thank you so much for joining us here on WION. Always a pleasure speaking to you.
Thanks for the invitation.